How did you come to form the foundation? When did that happen?
Well, that's basically, you know, from the 70s to 2010, 11. You know, the foundation has basically just been formed. And I worked for him for 10 years. Started out basically putting out materials, writing materials. They all sounded basically the same. And I said, this is not the way to go. So I was trying to basically get him into Ebony. I went and I sent materials to Ebony. And Ebony picked him up. And then Weekly Reader picked him up, and then all the subsidiaries in Weekly Reader, and then other people. And he was doing shows in schools. He would go and he would do a slideshow and talk about his welding, and sometimes weld. So Captain Kangaroo picked him up. So it was all the kids-related stuff. National Geographic World. My piece over here was on the head of National Geographic World. I'd get a news group coming out and saying, we got this blurb, we want to come out, we want to film, you know, we'll probably be there for 15 minutes, and they'd come up and they go, well, where's the miniature dinosaurs? And they were expecting something really small, because that's what they saw in the newspaper. The newspapers never listed sizes. So they'd come out and their 15 minutes would turn out all day. Jim is a very quiet, unassuming gentleman. You never really could get any information from him. So when I started working for him, I would ask him questions. I never got any answers. And the first time I got all my answers was at Rutgers University. He had a demonstration there and a show and a little talk, and he took me along. And I said, the kids asked questions. Same questions I've been asking now for 6 months, 7 months. And he answered all of them. So that's where I got all my information then to put into articles to try and entice these people to come out and see his work. And Jim in the early 70s was not really showing. He only had like 3 dinosaurs, nothing really very, very large, and he was in the process probably of making like a brontosaurus. This one, of course, came a little bit later, but most of his stuff was late 70s, early 80s, because he had health issues, and after that, these pieces are too heavy to start moving around, and by the 90s he was hurting, so he really couldn't do too much. Early 2000s, it would be smaller pieces like the ants that you have. And
did you go through different phases in all the years that you knew him? In terms of, was there a way of defining a change in style or emphasis?
He started out in wood. The only wood piece I ever saw was a platter that he made. And then he's made tables. He's taken tree trunks and made tables and bases for them. You know, he's found art, junkyard art. I would follow him into the junkyards, and he would show me pieces, and he would say, I'm going to make this. And he would describe this piece. I could never see that piece, never understood that piece. And it would get done, and I would say, oh, is that what you made? So what he saw and what I saw a pile of car parts. He saw dinosaur parts. He knew where these pieces would fit and how they would fit and what look he was trying to do. I never saw that. I could see the piece when it's done. I could understand. You know, like he would say, okay, I'm going to use these brake shoes on the top of this bird, and these are going to be the feathers. So I saw brake shoes. Then when I saw it on top of the head, I could do that. you know, the oil pans. You see an oil pan, you don't think anything of it. Put two oil pans together and you immediately see the head. So it's that kind of thing. And I worked with him for 10 years. Became a long time friend, and didn't get so much involved in shows. I actually got him the first museum show in Philadelphia, and from there it was just, once you got into one, just like Ebony magazine, got into one, somebody saw it, they said, hey, this would be great for us. Got him into Philadelphia. Didn't make us much money, but then it was the springboard. So we were at the Field Museum. We were at the Smithsonian. Not we, but him, at a later date. Not under me, but I did a couple of shows in Massachusetts, Carolinas, and with his reputation growing, he then, expanded out. Australia they boxed up his stuff, shipped it out to Australia. They boxed up his stuff, shipped it out to Japan. Did a couple of photographic exhibits where they just had large pictures of his work overseas. And so basically he's an internationally known sculptor. Natural history museums seem to like him better than art museums, though he calls himself an artist. And I don't care where it is as long as it's in a museum. And the foundation was formed to keep the collection together. So one of the things that Jim wanted was to have his sculptures in one place at one museum after he died. And it really makes for a better collection. I mean, it's great. We have a piece here in Monmouth County for Monmouth County residents at the Monmouth Museum. And so they can see that piece and know that this is part of their heritage, because you'll find a lot of kids growing up in the area, they'll come by and they'll say, oh, I remember when Jim was at our school, and that's great. It's great. So they know what art is, and they know what found object art is, and that's what he was.
What or who inspired Jim? What were his inspirations?
It's hard to tell. Jim grew up in Colts Neck, and he first started out making go-karts and doing welding with go-karts. So they had a whole little grouping that did that. And then in the Navy, he did more sophisticated welding as a mechanic. And then when he got out, he flitted around for a while, job to job, and he ended up picking up a job at the Job Corps up in North Jersey, teaching kids, found art objects and how to weld and that kind of thing. So he's self-taught, and he is a wonderful self-taught, because if you look at his older sculptures before he had his health problems, you don't see the seams. You just see pure welding. And I don't know. I mean, there's always bumps and stuff, but you'll take a look at some of his stuff, and these are great seams that just blends in. So that's what he was, trying to do. I like his dinosaurs. I like his creatures. I'm more of an abstract person, so I bought a lot of abstracts from him. and it's interesting, like he got the first exhibit at New Jersey at the Science Center. He brought in thousands and thousands of people that enjoyed that piece and the whole show that he had for their opening.
Was there a pattern to a time when it was easier to sell his works and more difficult to sell his works?
Well, he was at the Monmouth Festival of the Arts show for 36 years. He was at their first show, and he was at till the day he died. And there are people in Monmouth County that have spring-necked birds, little ants. I mean, you saw the big-size ants. They don't have big size, but they have these little ants. They have the birds that you see similar there. There's a couple of people that have smaller dinosaurs in Monmouth County. Again, his abstracts he sold, and there are some corporations that have his stuff. So this is one of probably the last pieces he made. But I didn't see it right away, but I've always saw brontosaurus or a brontosaurus. He's made a couple of them.
Now, the collection that's going to Tallahassee, that's going to be basically the largest aggregate collection where people could see the most at one time?
At this point, yes.
What do you remember about Jim in terms of, like, what impression did you get? How did he want to be remembered? How would he want to be remembered?
I'm not quite sure. He would actually want to be remembered by his sculpture. That's what he loved. They were his children to him.
What's your hope for the foundation, for his collection, for the museum? What's your hope?
I would like it is, when it goes down to Tallahassee, part of this deal is basically that they are going to refurbish it. So how it looks exactly right now might not look the same. The pieces will be the same, but they'll repaint the turtle probably yellow. Might not be that color yellow, but then if you take a look at some of his pieces where you'll see paint underneath, he got paint from the automobile shop, and if they had a sale on reds, you had red artwork. Same thing, and he loved bright colors. Fuchsia, he loved reds. He went through a black phase. I have a feeling that all of his abstracts were all painted black. And then, I know, because these two pieces over here were painted, my pieces were repainted red when he refurbished them for me. And that's because he had red. Got red, and he liked red. He failed art in high school. Teacher didn't like what he was doing. He failed. So, but you know what? Art is what you make of it. Did I like every piece of Jim's? No. I have more of a passion for his abstracts, only because I probably couldn't see at that time a dinosaur sitting in my yard. And now that I've had them sitting here in my yard for a couple of years, I hate to see them go.